Okay, so we've been asked to write the equation of a line through 2 points. And in some cases, you could do this on a graph. If you wanted to, you'd have to use some graph paper. And you could estimate find where the first point is, 2, -1, and the second point might be up here. And then you could start counting and count all your way up here to get the rise, and count over here to get the run. And then, of course, as we know, the slope is always the rise over the run. So you could do that, and then once you're done with that, you could figure out, all right, where does this cross the y-axis? But that's going to be a real hassle with a problem like this. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to do this a simpler way instead of having to graph. Graphing would work, but it would be a real hassle if these numbers, for instance, were decimals or really big numbers or things like that. So first of all, we know our job is to fill in numbers in this type of equation. So we've got to get the slope, which is always the number in front of the x, and the y-intercept. And as you know, the slope is always the rise divided by the run. Okay? Well, how do you calculate the rise? Well, we're trying to find out how much the line rises from one point to the other. So really we're saying if you have a point that's -1 below the x-axis and another one that's 13 above, how much do you rise to get there? Well, the simplest way to do that is to simply subtract the numbers. Okay? So 13 minus -1. And as you know, minus a negative means plus, so I get 14. That's the rise. The run, you subtract the other numbers. So 5 minus -2, that's 7. Okay? The way to think about that on the graph would be this point was 2 to the left of the y-axis. This one was 5 to the right. So if you count from here up to there, you count forward 7. Okay? So we now have a slope of 2, which means we already know what goes in that box right there. Okay? So we're going to start writing this thing. Y equals 2x plus the other box. Okay? Well, now I've got to find out what goes in the box. Okay? And I'd rather not graph again. So here's what I'm going to do. I paused the graph to move that work down below a little bit so we'd have some more room. And so now I can work up here. This equation, when it's all done, is supposed to work. So in other words, for every x coordinate that I put in, I'm supposed to get the correct y coordinate. Okay, well, I only have 2 points to work with, but I can use either one. If I put a -2 into this equation, so -2 right in here, and then calculate this, I have to get -1, okay, right here for y. Or if I put a 5 in here for x and calculate all this, then I'm supposed to get 13. Okay? So what I'm going to do is put the 5 in there. I think that's going to be easier to work with because they're not negative. I'm going to put the 5 in there and say, okay, now that's 10. What do I have to add on to that so that I get all the way up to 13? Okay? Let me say it again. I put a 5 in here, I calculate it, and I've got to find out what goes right here so that when I calculate all this, I get 13. Well, that's going to be 3. Well, now I know not only what goes in the first box, 2, but also what goes in the second box, 3. So here's my equation. Y equals 2x plus 3. And I'm done. I've written an equation for a line that goes through 2 points.